Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. We are now live with Chair Harrington.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. This is the Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. Clerk Hodges, could you please take the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Fye?
Present.
Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Vice Chair Willie? Here. Chair Harrington?
Here. If the board will allow me, I'd like to read a statement. Ms. Angie talked to me last Thursday, and then Friday we all had the benefit of electronic information per the public records request. To the employee who on March 3rd experienced my stern tone of voice and concise words, I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings and made you cry. Let me repeat, I am sorry. I now understand fully that I am a position. In fully understanding that I am the position, I now understand that I don't get to be myself. While the voter-approved county charter defines the terms of the position, people, each of the 2,400 plus employees and the full 611,000 community members each get to define and decide what the position is. There is no action anyone can do that I myself have not already imposed on myself. Criticism, punishment, what have you. I now serve on no external committees. I now no longer serve on any internal committees. I ask for no staff briefings. I no longer ask questions, including on budgets, as questions seem to scare some agency staff. And at least at one of the two agencies, that's not to occur. My apologies to constituents, taxpayers, and ratepayers, and to the number of staff at each agency who have thanked me for working to understand their work, for asking useful questions, and for understanding what I'm voting on. I will continue to vote on matters. I do preside over board meetings and rely upon my board colleagues to help me understand the complex nature on display, including in the auditorium, while I preside per the board adopted rules. It is much harder to preside than anyone realizes. One of the three candidates running for chair in the upcoming election will learn this starting next July. I've been living with mental health disease my entire life. I will continue. Thank you. And now, the first agenda topic for this afternoon's work session, CPO and CCI Modernization update.
Thank you, Chair. Ann Ober, Assistant County Administrator, and I'm here today on behalf of the County Administrator's Office.
Alicia Sojourner, Director of Access and Opportunity.
This year, you all have taken actions around the CPO program through an R&O order, and we are here to talk about the next steps associated with that work. I'm here today to answer questions. Alicia is going to take us through the slide deck, and then we will proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to start us off, we started the first slide with the why modernization was necessary. Modernization of the CPO-CCI has been going on for about 5 years, roughly, give or take. And some of the major factors for maybe those who are not familiar with the background, is a 40-year-old model that worked great when it started, and throughout time and change of demographics, different development, the shifting of CPO meetings started to be more around greater services and less on land use for the most part. Also, a big piece was staff resources, including budgetary resources as well. So those are just a couple of main reasons why modernization was originally talked about and needed. What we know as of now is that some things for the CPO CCI program is going to remain the same, but for the most part, we know a number of things are changing. So remaining the same is looking at this through different district lens, as well as transparency and being compliant as well with all of our state and local laws. What we know is changing as of right now is the CPO geographic and structure will end. We know that the focus will be on county services. And one thing that we have added through this process is making sure that we have key performance indicators. So we are truly able to account for who we're reaching out to, who is attending, and that's really for accountability reasons. Our community members most definitely want that accountability, and so having those KPIs we know will be helpful. Right now, our timeline is as followed, and I'll get into a little bit more details about our outreach and engagement. So right now, we're in front of you, giving you this update on what our plans are through the summer. And this month, individual CPOs are still meeting. Next month in April will be the final CPO meeting, and that's all CPOs coming together. It's going to be a hybrid meeting on April 24th here at the auditorium. In May and July, that's through the summer, we will be doing intentional outreach and community engagement, talking to different community members and really hearing from them what are they hoping to see, or what are they possibly hoping to hear? What does something like this mean to community members? So a lot of that engagement will be happening through the summer. In August, the OAO team will be synthesizing all the information we receive from community members and creating the actual model for what we are going to see launch in September and October. We will be back to you all in August to give you that update around what we heard within our community outreach and engagement process. So as we go into our summer of engagement and really listening to individuals, we are rooting this within a few values. These values will also continue on into the new structure. And so some of those values are around collaboration, and that's collaboration with other departments, special districts, as well as our community members. Sustainability. We know how important being sustainable is with any type of program that we create for community members, especially when community members do look to those different types of programs for information from the county. We want to make sure that we are consistent, compliant, and that all of our engagement is truly accessible and inclusive as well. Along with values, we know change is hard. some folks embrace change and other folks maybe hide from change. But for us, we know that change is happening. And so we use a variety of change management theories. And the reason why we are doing this through this process is because we're we're all human. We're working with humans, we'll be talking to humans, and we want to make sure we're doing this through a human-centered approach and also being trauma informed as we navigate these conversations. And also, this change management process also honors the past, our current, and our future with the success of whatever program that is created. So for our outreach this summer, um, we we will also have some KPIs for our outreach as well. But as of right now, we have 8 different listening circles that will be scheduled, 2 per district, and we'll have a combination of both in person and online as well, virtual. We will have 2 different roundtables with CBOs and hearing from CBOs, especially culturally centric CBOs. Uh, we will have 3 different partner conversations, and when we mean partner, we mean like uh, our cities, special districts, um, even the sheriff's office as a partner, as an example. So having these different conversations with our partners. Ika and Willie are outreach gurus. They are planning to do at least 10 different pop-ups. So think of this as like going to farmers markets. I was going to say the state fair, the county fair. So it's these different community events that they will table, and we will have some very fun questions to ask our community members at those pop-ups. We will have 4 targeted sessions, 2 that support language access. We know 1 for sure in Spanish, and the second one we are unsure of now. We do want to have a youth centric session. We know youth are emerging leaders. Some of them are not even emerging, they're already leaders. And so we want to make sure that our next group of voters are, that we are listening to them as well. And then another target area will be rural. We know that rural and urban they have different wants and different needs, and so we want to make sure we hear from the rural communities. And then we will also have an online survey, which is currently ICA is working with Dr. Esther Pritchard, which I believe you all have met now before, to create a survey as well to really hear from community members. So some of our next steps will be coming back to you all in August. August 11th is what we have currently for the work session, to let you know what we heard from community members over the summer and what is the new structure actually going to look like. OAO is still working with LUT, and we're still having conversations about the best way to transfer the Goal 1 responsibility to the Planning Commission. I know that they have to also create some new ordinance as well, and they're in the process of doing that over this summer as well. So from there, I went through that super fast, but questions, things I can clarify.
On that point, the Goal 1 transfer of responsibilities, we have to still continue running the business, and that includes making sure we're following and sort of meeting our obligations around goal one. So how is that going? Maybe you can just more almost for the community's sake, not just answer to me, but how exactly will that happen
Yeah, so
during this transition period?
speaking to see if Stephen was here, but that's all good. So their LUT is still looking at goal one and their structure within the ordinance. Part of what they need to do is rewrite their ordinance, and so they are currently working on that over the summer. Until then, that is what we are currently working with LUT with is how where to best place goal one. Is it continuously working with CCI or a different group? So that's something we're still working out.
So a couple of things that I just would add. First, several communities in Oregon fulfill their obligation for goal one using their planning commission.
Mhm.
So this is a consistent move into that arena. They do so often without CPOs. So again, this really is about how they make sure that their engagement around land use obligations is going out to the broader community. We do not have any concerns at this time about being able to meet that obligation. And we met with Stephen Roberts yesterday, the head of LUT, just to confirm his confidence that
The timing and transition is not an issue.
it's not an issue. He's looking at probably September when the full ordinance would be before you for approval. The ordinance, just to be really clear, is that right now it still calls out CPOs and they don't exist for you all any longer after this month. And so making sure that it's really clear that that is no longer the feeder into the system is the priority. So I think at this point, we feel fairly confident in that. We are working on a message just to make sure that the two offices are actually consistent. We'll be sending that out to the Board of County Commissioners for inclusion in this packet just to explicitly state who is managing which portions of that work across the two teams over the course of the next 3 months.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the presentation. And will the information from this presentation also be on the website? I know it's going to be, it's posted, but I'm concerned that it's under community engagement so that people understand where we are in the process and what the next steps are going to be.
We will add it.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll weigh in. Alicia, thank you for your presentation. I'm glad we started with goal one responsibilities, and I do want to shift a little bit of focus to the CCIs, which are going to be existing until September 2026, and how the planning took us through that. What is the transitional plan for CCIs? And then what accommodations are your office going to make to the CCI members? I understand there's a request on some meeting spaces. So can you speak to some of that? I know you're writing down, so I'll slow down.
No, it's
Come
okay.
back
I
to the
just
rest
didn't
of the
want to
questions.
forget the second
Right.
question as well. When we were talking about like goal one and those responsibilities, we are actually speaking about CCI. So
So we're going to get you a
Yeah.
memo probably in the next week with more information about how we're meeting that obligation. Right now, to be clear, the RNO has said we don't have an obligation. So we are trying to make sure that in this period of gap, that there is still a way for people to engage. The goal under goal one is for communities to have a path forward. So making sure it's clear to communities that they can continue to submit testimony for applications and engage in that space. But this is part of my concern, if I just speak for myself, has been that we are not the land use office. And so every time that we step into the space, or especially around the CCI, I get a little nervous that we are not actually the right actors to be engaging. So that's why we're working with Stephen Roberts. And I would ask that I give him the opportunity to respond to your question.
And then if community members who are on the CCI steering committee are requesting space for county buildings and a bit of accommodation until we get to the September 2026, I would assume we were be able to continue that tradition and that culture to be able to accommodate that. Is that correct? Because I am hearing from community members, just full transparency, that are not really happy how we conduct ourselves in terms of how we say no to the community members. I think we've set a certain expectations and we created a certain cultures for the community. And I think it's important that this last bit of a hand holding, that we do this transition well. We do it in a way that is respectful and dignified. I've heard some community members that said they requested some building arrangements, and your office directly said they can accommodate that, and the board comes first priority. So this is something is in your wheelhouse, and it didn't bubble up for me to, but since we're having this public conversation, I think I want to request as one person that the CCI steering committee and that transition be done in a way that is respectful and dignified.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the biggest pieces right now is capacity. So it's typically a conversation around can't do it in person, but we can remotely start a meeting for them. And that has been offered multiple times. Yeah. But we will most definitely, I can have continued conversations with the steering committee members.
Yeah, please do. And I think to me, I would say, Tanya, I can't speak to the capacity issues, and I know that is a real thing that's happening, especially with the conversation we had last night with the budget. So I think that reality exists, and you'd be surprised how very understanding the community members are on that topic. But I think they're looking to be a bit more accommodated than we have been, and to facilitate, whether that is like, hey, can you include some news in the newsletter, or can we get this room? I think instead of a no, there's a way to do the positive no, to deliver that positive no. So however we do that, I think it's what people are looking for.
So Commissioner Fye and just commissioners in general, if there's ever concerns around, excuse me, community interactions or staff conversations with community, whether it's through email and or verbal, it is helpful if you share that with us when you receive that feedback, so that then between myself and ACAs and the relative department directors, we can follow up. It's very hard for me to react to situations without all the information. So Commissioner Fye, staff are listening to what you share, and I'm sitting here not knowing like the situation or specifics. So,
Okay, so this is what it is.
I would appreciate just a follow up after this so that we can put the details together and make sure that we're following up appropriately with whomever has reached out to you, and also extending that to other commissioners too.
So basically the request is this: to be a bit more accommodating to the CCI steering committee, and then to make sure that volunteers are involved in this transition. Simple as that. And I think it's not anything that is new to, I see some heads shaking. So, but sorry, I went around the long way to say that we need, I would like to see that, because this has been going on for years. And we're about to start a new transition. So it's going to require a bit of a, care. And
it would appear to me that we have done a lot towards reaching out to the community and trying to hear what they're saying, and at the same time not supporting the program that they want us to support. So these are hard decisions. I've gone to a variety of departments with constituent complaints and requests and gotten told no, and gone back and had that conversation. It depends on how we, not only how we deliver it, but the homework we do to try and get to yes, if we can. So I'm hearing what you said, Commissioner Fye, but I'm also hearing the presentation, and I think we have done a fairly phenomenal, long time engaged process of transition of this of the CPO. I don't know what you call it, program, and we're trying to transition and find a happy spot when we get to the other side. And I think we're doing a great job of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very comfortable with the direction and with the approach, and I believe it will continue to provide for community engagement on county activities in a way that is sustainable given the whole variety of things, as well as the entire ecosystem of community engagement that we practice here in Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we close out this item, I just want to be very clear on next steps because it's just over time, there has been questions relative to CPO and CCI. So next steps that I heard in this conversation is Ms. Ober and Ms. Sojourner will be adding information to the packet to clarify. We will also be making sure that the website is updated so members of the public not only have access to the packet information, but also there's updated information on the website. In addition, I will also be asking both the teams of OAO as well as LUT to provide an update that I can present to your board during leadership update next week that very clearly speaks to engagement in meeting goal 1 objectives. We will be continuing to update through leadership, just to let you know, team, letting you know right now, leadership updates, just because I know this has been a subject of community questions that have came to your board, and we do want to make sure that we're just transparent through this transition process.
The only one I would add is that at the end of April, we will have our last CPO combined meeting as well. So that's the other commitment we made. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. We're a bit ahead of schedule. Are you all set with topic 2? Okay, great. We'll move on to the 2026 state ledge session wrap up.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I am Erin Doyle, your Policy and Government Affairs Division Manager. I am also playing the role of Zakir Khan, who is out sick today, one of your government relations managers. I will do my best to impersonate his information, but the rest of you wants to go ahead.
Good afternoon, board. For the record, Carly Silva Gabrielson, Government Relations.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Pablo Nieves Valenzuela, Government Relations Manager.
So let's talk 2026 state legislative wrap-up. So we're just going to cover this in 2 chunks. One is about the budget. That was a massive undertaking by the legislature. And then those major policy outcomes that we were working on with your board. Before we go into the substance, I would just like to say this here. I've said it to all of our department directors as well. But the enormous amount of work that had to be done this year in 32 days required not just a very impressive GR team that works hard to understand impacts, but a lot of work from subject matter experts in every department across the county. So I want to publicly thank them for the responsiveness, the detail-oriented, the thoughtful partnership. One of the key areas where that happens is in our leadership, another is in our county counsel's office, but down to people who see people every day and know what's coming in the door in Washington County, have a means by which they are communicating up to their leadership to communicate with us. So that's incredibly important to me to say thank you to all of those folks who give the capacity to their colleagues or the information to the GR team. I would also like to extend a very heavy thank you for the amount of responsiveness, deep, thoughtful conversation and partnership you as a commission have provided to the GR team this session. We had a lot of big policy questions. We had a lot of hard conversations, but we also had a lot of asks of you at the very last minute to come in, to testify, to approve letters, to have conversations. To all 5 of you, thank you for the work you have done to support the Washington County agenda and the Washington County GR team. So that wasn't on the agenda for today, but it needed to be said. So thank you all very much. And thank you to the staff here in Washington County. So at the end, we will be asking if you have further information needs, but I bet this is going to be robust enough that you won't. Just as a reminder, we did have some county priorities that your board adopted for the 2026 session. Those are listed here. I won't read them out, but the big one, both for the legislature and the county, were to make sure that we are stable, both at the state level and at the county level, for the ability for all of us to provide service to community. Because at the end of the day, that's what we do in partnership with the state, is make sure that the people can be served. So from there, I will turn it over to Pablo.
Thank you, Erin. Yeah, so the first thing we want to start with here was just, going into the session, we knew that the state was trying to close a budget hole that it was facing. And the way that they ended up doing that was through a couple of different ways. The first is SB 1507, which, of course, that was the one that pulled, sort of decoupled from federal tax law. That was some of those changes that were included in HR 1, which, of course, were going to transfer over to the state's tax law, and that would have created some revenue challenges. So some of those portions of that bill were decoupled from state tax law, and that was part of the way that they were able to close the budget gap they were facing. The other big one here was making budget reductions that totaled at about $128 million. Excuse me. And the main way they ended up doing that was actually by cutting unfilled positions and things like office supplies. Of course, what we were really concerned about was pass-through dollars that go to the county. And it looks like in most areas that we were successful as local governments in advocating against cuts like that. So I'll leave it there, and then we can move on to the next slide. I'll pass it to Carly.
Great. Thank you so much, Pablo. Commissioners, as we all know, transportation was one of the major issues that the legislature grappled with this session. The Oregon Department of Transportation is facing currently about a $289 million budget gap for the current biennium, largely due to declining gas tax revenue and rising costs. So Senate Bill 1601 contained the legislature's solution to addressing that shortfall, which is relying on leaving approximately 100 positions unfilled at ODOT and redirecting about $108 million from planned projects to core road maintenance needs. Very importantly for counties and cities, the bill did not change the 50-30-20 funding formula and does not impact the local bridge program or the local fund exchange programs. The trade-off, however, is that fewer projects will move forward and Oregonians will see reduced transportation services for this biennium. I did want to highlight that while Senate Bill 1601 did not change the 50-30-20 funding formula, the issue did surface during a committee process for House Bill 4007. Amendments to that bill were proposed that would have redirected the state highway fund dollars away from cities and counties to backfill the Safe Routes to Schools program, along with another amendment that attempted to offset that by removing the voter approval requirements for local revenue measures. Although those amendments were not adopted, frankly, thanks to strong local government advocacy, we really expect that conversations surrounding the state highway fund allocations and local revenue authority will continue this year and into the 27th session.
Carly, can I ask you
Please.
a question on that? Do we know is the $108 million, is it disaggregated to know specifically how much is cut from each program? Is there that information available?
We have not seen those exact line items yet. However, we do know the total accounts that they're looking at that are in HB 2017, excuse me. So I can provide the board that information. Thank you, Commissioner Fye. I'll now move on to slide 6, which encompasses 3 priorities I want to update the board on. The first one Senate Bill 1601 also included some final hour revisions that removed the cap on county the county fairground account of $1.53 million, and will dedicate now a full 1% of the lottery revenue to county fairs. That's going to be effective on July 1st, 2027. What that change is expected to result in is roughly 100 to 200% increase for our county fair accounts, although final projections are still coming. So that was a result of some late night negotiations between some Willamette Valley and metro area legislators and those on the east side of the state. So a great accomplishment that many of those, including Commissioner Willie and of course everyone at our fairgrounds, have been working on for a very long time. I also wanted to highlight that the legislature approved $25 million for first-time funding in bonds for affordable housing preservation. There is a policy bill connected to that ask that I'll highlight later, but again, first time ever that the legislature is providing funding for affordable housing preservation. So those funds will be used to preserve homes similar to Wood Springs Apartments. So really great accomplishment there.
Wait, is the process for accessing those funds, is it like a grant process? Do you know how that's going to work, or is it just right now?
Great questions, Commissioner. OHCS is going to manage the allocation of that funding, so I will dig in for more information on what that process will look like.
Because I think we got 25 million just for Woods. If I'm remembering correctly.
And I will
need a lot more than what is listed.
I wrote that down.
That's exactly right. And I will highlight that the initial ask was $100 million. And of course, the legislature had so much to balance this session. So, but a huge accomplishment to create that fund and certainly move that issue, yes, down the field. I also wanted to highlight that the initial cuts that were proposed at the Department of Land of Conservation and Development, that your board submitted testimony asking to be preserved at the beginning of the legislative session, those resources were maintained. So that was another great accomplishment for your board. With that, I will turn it back over to Pablo. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. So getting into some of the top budget items that we were looking at and playing defense on this legislative session, when it comes to public safety and justice, a lot of the core programs that this board has prioritized those funding levels were maintained. So community corrections funding was maintained, law library funding, as well as mediation and conciliation service funding was maintained. And the CJC grants that we rely on, several departments rely on to do a lot of really strategic work in the community, those were maintained as well. I just want to, while we're very grateful that there were not cuts, I just want to point out the elephant in the room there with community corrections. The funding level was already far lower than we had hoped that it should be, and we were, surprised in the 25 legislative session when it wasn't higher than the current service level funding. But of course, it is still a good sign that it was maintained, and we'll continue advocating to make sure that we're fully being compensated for the work that we're doing.
Pablo, if I could just add to that, just to put a finer point, the state conducts a cost study to determine what should be the amount that the state, in essence, transfers to community corrections departments to be able to deliver the service. The state is not meeting their own cost study. So it is good news we're not going further backwards, but we are already backwards from what the state has said is the cost to deliver the service based on the metrics that the state has developed on their own. So I want to also point that out. I also want to point out that our law library has significantly reduced hours. So thank you for bringing the positive that it's maintained, and we still need to continue to have the advocacy in this space.
Yeah, that's right. It's the same story with law library funding and mediation conciliation funding, and even some of the CJC grants as well. So moving from there, local governments did have one really significant win, I think, this legislative session when it comes to the transient lodging tax. So this is the tax that's collected on hotel room stays, Airbnbs, that sort of thing, right? And local governments, counties and cities in particular, are currently required to use approximately 70% of that to promote tourism-related facilities. That funded. So essentially now, under HB 4148, the county and other local governments will be able to use 50% of that for promoting tourism and tourism-related facilities, and the other 50% can go to general services like, law enforcement and all the other core services that we provide, right? So, looking at the revenue that we generated last year through the TLT, and based on that, if we were to apply the funding, or I guess the split in funding that is under this bill, that would have been like an extra $3.6 million that we would be allowed to use of that revenue for general services. Of course, that money's going somewhere right now, right? So those are decisions that the board will be able to make, but it does allow a lot more flexible use of that spending, which is significant, especially considering the challenges that we're facing from a budget perspective. So just want to celebrate that win, and we'll go on and move to the next slide, and I'll pass it. Oh yeah, sure.
So when will this actually come into play?
I'll follow up with you on the implementation date, but I'm pretty certain that this kicks in at the beginning of next year.
So
Calendar year.
Yes, that's right. Calendar year.
Thank you for that clarification. So January of 27, okay. And then, I'm going to go back a few because I didn't ask the question on the Senate Bill 1507, which is the decoupling. That is the tax. I have seen very little on what exactly they decoupled from the feds. So if you could get me that information.
Yep.
And also knowing that a whole bunch of people have already filed their 25 tax returns. Obviously, this is not effective for 25, so it's effective for 26.
That is my understanding at this point in time, is that is for the next tax year, and it is the same implementation rate as HR1 is my understanding, but I will confirm that when we provide the fuller information as it relates to what specifically was decoupled.
Well, so how do you fix an existing hole in the budget of $128 million with something that doesn't even come into play until next year?
Biennium.
We have a biennial
Well,
budget system.
But we are in the middle of that biennium. So we got about 6 months of what's left of the current budget in that scenario. So I'm just asking. I mean, this seems to me like a little smoke and mirrors.
We will try to work that out
surprise me either.
specifically, but I know that the Legislative Fiscal Office does that math and tells them the numbers, and I will crib their work and provide it back to you.
They're going to provide $128 million of new revenue in the January to April 15, 27 tax year for the 26 year bias. So they're going to generate $128 million in that. So
the decoupling, I believe, saved $300 million. To be really clear, the $128 million is related to reductions in agency spending. So that's the other side of the ledger. That was $128 million for the biennium.
Okay. So yeah, if you could just give me what
more details.
Tax code was impacted by that, that would be great.
For the biennium, our biennium is FY 26 and FY 27. Okay. My point goes to even one more slide back. Ooh, sorry. The stabilization funding one. There you go. This one that has fairground funding. That one. Sorry.
Okay.
I should have used a number. When I was a Metro counselor, we understood that the region frequently or on occasion went to the legislature and made an ask for lottery funding for light rail expansion, which meant that part of my training as a Metro counselor and all of us as a work group was the way that lottery collections works. So essentially from the games as well as from the video lottery. And we, when we worked as a region to go make those large asks for the match for federal grants, we had to be cognizant of the forecast for lottery funding, but also to be sensitized to the fact that the generations of video lottery machines, let alone the games, is a thing. So for future boards, you may need to develop some new training information for future board members around lottery funding because it doesn't always grow and isn't forecast to always grow. That's all. And with that dependency or the county fair account, it's something that I anticipate future boards will need to be more sensitized to.
Yeah, and just to add on that, the dependency the county does have on lottery funds as a funding source that is discretionary, supporting the general fund too. So I'm just adding that and to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me go to slide 7 real quickly. Yeah, I've got a bit of an assist here from Alex, County Council, on the implementation date for 4148, and it's the 91st day after the end of the 2026 legislative session. So basically, about 75 days or so from now.
Oh,
91 days
Okay.
is fun to calculate.
Yeah.
so between now and then, we got to figure out how to apply the new rules.
Well, the amount's not changing.
Yeah.
The collections, it's just what you do with it on the back end.
So
Well, you look at it, if you look at the allocation though, and you've seen this, because the cities are in there with their own, but school districts and all this stuff, they all divvy up a portion of the 9%, and I think state added one more to that this year. So the allocations get changed a little bit, is what I sense. So
Good opportunity for a memo.
yes, sorry, we don't need to get into those.
no,
You're
and
right.
also good timing. I don't have that rolling agenda up in front of me. However, I believe it's April 16th that we had already planned to come back to the board and give an update on TLT collections in general because we are seeing a decline. So we will make sure to add this component into that discussion for your board.
Great. And with that, unless there's any other questions, I'll pass it over to Erin.
Tending to be soccer at this moment. Essentially, the top line takeaway, and I will stick to that as much as I can, is that there were no cuts of funding from the state to the county, so the pass-through funds have been maintained. There is, however, future thinking already implicated because not only did the federal HR 1 Act have income tax changes in it, it also had various cost shifts into running programs that the state runs that are also federally funded. And therefore, in anticipation of those increased costs occurring at the beginning of 2027 or in the next fiscal year, for Health and Human Services, both OHA and the Department of Human Services, they needed additional money to implement those changes and make sure that they can continue the administration. So additional funds were needed there in order to make sure that they can actually do the work that was required under HR 1. With that, sorry. Pablo.
Sorry. Yeah. So, my apologies. So, the Sustainable Harvest Bill, this is related to the budget priority we had related to the HCP. I know Commissioner Willie, you were really engaged on this, and this is a bill that you testified on in the last session. So, this bill, it unfortunately did not pass this session, and it was sort of for the same reasons that it didn't pass the previous session, and that's because there was some opposition from environmental organizations who were concerned that it could sort of be used as a loophole to put pressure on the state and to really undermine the HCP fundamentally. But we don't believe that those concerns are really founded. I think what really was the biggest detriment for this bill is the fiscal impact, which the Department of Justice as well as the Department of Forestry both slapped a pretty big fiscal cost on it. Based on my conversations with Brandon at AOC, it seems as though those fiscals were not that they don't really seem to match the policy implications of the bill. And, the DOJ, for example, was saying that if they had to pay out any lawsuits in these cases, that it would cost $10 million. But there was a change made to the bill this session that would have actually made it so that there was no financial compensation that would happen as a result of these lawsuits. It would just simply be that the state would have to remedy the problem by fixing the projection that they had for harvest levels, right? Because essentially counties might want to, if they believed that the state's harvest levels were not accurate, that their projected harvest levels were not accurate, that we would be able to sue to sort of force those changes. And the remedy here was simply that to force them to do that, not to, charge them or, be compensated financially beyond that. So
Departments can submit fiscals that have no oversight from the legislature, or they don't have to be based in reality. This is new to me.
The process of the fiscal impact statement is a bit of a black box, and so state agencies are all requested. They have to provide justifications, and those aren't necessarily included in the final report from the Legislative Fiscal Office. The Association of Oregon Counties, the Special Districts Association, and the League of Oregon Cities are also asked for those fiscal impact statements. And even when we provide robust financial impacts with backing of why and how we get to the numbers we get, they don't always come out with anything related to what we put in. So before I go too much further into the politics of a fiscal impact statement, yes, they can. How they are used is not always clear.
yeah, that's exactly right. And looking forward with this bill, I spoke with Brandon earlier this week, and it sounds like ODF has told him that they feel like they can do this without legislation and without a fiscal. They simply are concerned that if you put it in statute, that would force them to generate a fiscal, but that they think they can simply do the work without any of an appropriation. So, to be frank, I'm a little bit skeptical that
Let's see them
that
do
will
that.
work, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be wonderful, right? And so we'll work with them to hopefully find a non-legislative solution that will generate the same information that this bill would have. That said, if they don't follow through on that, or the solutions that they propose really don't meet what we are asking, then I think the next conversation really is with the legislature, with the Legislative Fiscal Office, to sort of get them to help them understand our concerns with the fiscals that are coming out of these agencies, and hopefully make it so that if we have to reintroduce this bill, that there's not a significant fiscal placed on it next time, or finding some other remedy that takes out the Department of Justice situation out of it. And so there's some ideas that we're floating around there, but a couple different avenues on how we plan to move forward with that next session.
So if I could just add a whole bunch of crap to that and condense it down, okay?
Yeah.
First of all, ODF has said they could manage 185 million board feet of harvest, but they don't have the staffing to go above that. The Council of Forest Trust Lands has said, if you go above 185, we will find you the money to pay for that staff to do that. ODF gets a third of the harvest dollars, and that's how they pay for their budget. So if they reduce harvest, they're cutting their own budget. Right. And then they have to go to legislature asking for money, which doesn't work very well. So the whole thing is really in a spin cycle. And then you talk about lawsuits. The whole concept of the Habitat Conservation Plan was to significantly reduce lawsuits. We have an HCP now. It hasn't been adopted by the feds, but that's the whole purpose. And so there's a lot of spin that's going on to this, and there's no reason why we can't ask and get ODF to give us a 10-year sustainable harvest that works for everybody. And so it's all politics on the environmental side at this point in time. So that's my 2 bits.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, next slide. So another priority that this board set was preserving the $1.25 million that was appropriated during the 2025 legislative session, and we were successful in making that happen. So I just want to, there's a few people I want to shout out here. I mean, first I want to start with this board. Your engagement on this was particularly effective. I think Washington County legislators understand that this was a top priority, and this was a way for them to deliver for their communities. So I really want to just give a shout out and appreciate this board, and also want to call out the work that we did with the communications team. Commissioner Teresa, I know that you participated in the press conference that we organized, as well as Judge Guptill and Brian Robb from our planning team as well. They did really good work with our communications team to spread the word, generate media coverage about this priority. And, I think that was really important for helping the legislature understand that this wasn't sort of a siloed issue where, just a few people who work in the courthouse care about it. This was really something that impacts the whole community because the courthouse is it's really just the nexus point for public safety in our region, right? And I also want to, of course, want to point out the support that we had from the Washington County Caucus. We basically every legislator who was not a member of leadership, signaled their support for preserving this funding. And folks who are members of leadership, they're told not to, sign on to letters and that sort of thing. So that's why I wanted to point that part out. But I also want to give a specific shout out to Senator Courtney Neron-Mislin, Representative Nathan Sosa, Representative Farah Chaichi. They all went beyond that and had conversations with the Ways and Means co-chairs on our behalf to keep reminding them of the importance of preserving this funding. So it really took a village on this one, but we really appreciate all the collaboration that had to happen for this funding to be preserved, and look forward to pursuing construction dollars as we move forward with the planning process. And of course, we need to wrap up that grant agreement with the planning process. Don't want to get too far ahead.
The other thing I think we did well on this one too, and I think it's worth acknowledging just for the future, is we started early. Like we were doing this stuff or starting doing some of this stuff in late November, early December, way before the session even started. And I think that was also part of by the time we were having discussions in January with certain members of the Washington County Caucus, they'd already heard it once or twice. And so we were, reinforcing it and saying, hey, remember, we just talked about this. So I think that was an important part of the plan that you all helped orchestrate.
I also want to call out, first of all, you guys did a great job, the GR staff, but our other staff, also staff assistants and others, worked hard and really pushed on a lot of information gathering and pieces that helped really build the story. And I just want those folks to get the recognition as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I will double down on that, as the other half of my team is vital to the GR team's success. They are part of the GR team, but the staff assistants to your board made sure you were all available and had the information you needed. So they deserve a lot of kudos for making sure we look good to all of you. So
And
thank
there,
you for them in the back of the room.
I would also highlight, I'm just going to say, in my case, Maida, her awareness of how the systems operate in Salem, her awareness of who to call, when to call, really was invaluable. So thank you for that.
In hopes of moving us along, because we've already eaten up all the extra time we were given and we have a few more slides to go through, I'll move to the major policy outcomes. Again, we did have established priorities as a county that your board gave to us as a team. I will say there aren't any slides related to the recruitment and retention of talent necessary for our communities, largely because there wasn't a path forward this session. But it is important to maintain that stable budgets mean people feel secure into entering those professions. So it starts with opportunity to maintain the work, and we will continue to figure out ways by which we can encourage the state to help us with recruitment and retention. Other county priorities resided squarely with the legislature in the economic development, so we'll talk about that. And then just a quick highlights on the immigration rights, federal response, public meetings laws, and affordable housing preservation policy portion. And with that, I will turn it back to Carly.
Thank you. As your board is aware, economic development was another overarching theme of the legislative session. And so this first slide covers Governor Kotek's economic development bill, House Bill 4084. This bill was ultimately amended in Ways and Means to include a 1-year moratorium on new data centers and enterprise zones, while the Governor's Advisory Committee on Data Centers conducts its review. But the bill essentially establishes the Joint Permitting Council. It directs agencies to publish a comprehensive catalog of available permits and modifies enterprise zone criteria in a few different ways that are itemized there on the slide. Throughout the session, the county worked very closely with partners and legislators to advance a cost recovery solution for counties administering enterprise zones, given the increasing complexity of the program and the growing impact on the county general fund administering this statewide program. We advocated for a no-cost solution to the state that would have allowed counties to recover administrative costs. And ultimately, those provisions were not adopted, and the bill has been signed into law. Looking ahead, the Governor's Advisory Committee on Data Centers has now convened, and Umatilla County Commissioner Dan Doran is engaging on behalf of AOC and counties through that process. While cost recovery did not advance this session, this issue remains unresolved and will absolutely require a statewide solution and may be a viable option for a future board to consider for prioritization in a future legislative session.
Who's advising that legislative group that's evaluating this that you mentioned?
Great question. It is a Governor Kotek's group, and I can return the board the full membership of that slate.
Is there anybody on there that actually deals with enterprise zones and data centers?
As mentioned, Commissioner Willie, Dan Doran from Umatilla County is representing counties, and there is several folks from economic development groups, and I believe an individual from a data center group. So I'll follow up and get the full roster to the board.
Okay.
Related, Commissioner Snyder, do you know if Commissioner Doran has been participating in the Governance and Revenue Steering Committee?
I'd be happy to jump in and inform the board that Commissioner Doran was active on the last steering committee and did provide an update to that group about his involvement with the Data Center Advisory Committee and has been engaging with AOC staff. He really wants to represent the full experience of counties throughout the state with this administration. So the board, I think, will have opportunities to provide that feedback through AOC and to the commissioner.
Well, I'm happy we're going to support the AOC on this, but at the same time, I think the fact that we have 50 data center or 50 E-zones in
61.
Washington County alone, I would say that we weigh in fairly strongly on our own. And that's what I'd like us to do. Now,
That commissioner.
I can only say that's what I'd like us to do. I got 4 other commissioners here that may say, nah, we're not going to do that. But I really think we have a vested interest significantly in this, and we've got to be a player.
Thank you for that. And I will talk with Aaron and our counterparts about how we can engage and find opportunities for the board to provide that direct feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to move us forward to the next economic development bill, Senator Solman's bill, which was Senate Bill 1586, which ultimately did not advance this legislative session. During the committee process, the county was actively engaged on the bill, and we worked to advance an amendment addressing cost recovery for enterprise zone administration. Ultimately, enterprise zones were removed from 1586, so it resolved that concern. We also worked with partners to create a provision in the bill that would have allowed for cost recovery, specifically related to administering a local option capital tax, local option equipment tax exemption, excuse me, which was successfully amended to the bill. So that was really great. But ultimately, some legislators really raised concerns that they felt like there wasn't sufficient time for a full public process, specifically regarding the land proposed in 1586. And so the bill did not move forward this session. We do expect that the conversation around industrial land supply and the role of local governments will continue, and that we will possibly be looking at this specific piece of land again in the future. So we'll remain very engaged on this issue, and do expect for it to return in future legislative sessions.
To ensure that I am sharing an update, Senator Solman told me on Friday that she will not be advancing the topic of increasing industrial land, urban rural reserve switching in any future session.
Thank you for that, Chair. Wonderful. And with that, I will turn it back over to Erin.
I steal the microphone first. Again, playing the role of Dr. Khan here. So please
You're doing great.
Don't ask me any technical questions. I am not going to go through every single bill on this slide, but there were a number of bills that were could have been a package, could have been just individual bills, but were really focused on how the state is reacting to the ongoing immigration enforcement and federal response that is occurring within Oregon. The vast majority of these bills are listed for your awareness, but there are some that Zucker did highlight for me that may have some potential impact on county work. The first being House Bill 4138, the Law Enforcement Accountability and Visibility Act. It requires law enforcement agencies to have public policy, generally restricting the use of facial coverings by their on-duty officers, and prohibits law enforcement officers from wearing facial coverings while on duty, except under specified circumstances. We will work with our sheriff's office when they are allowed to use those facial coverings. There still needs to be identifying information on their person. So this is effective immediately. So I know that our county counsel's office is already engaged in the work with our sheriff's department. The next bill that I will go to as I turn all my pages to find.
So these all passed?
These are all passed as far as I know, and if I'm incorrect, I will let you know. The Senate Bill 1587, privacy protections from data brokers. This specifically prohibits government bodies from disclosing personally identifiable information to a data broker without an accepted attestation from the broker that the data will not be sold or transferred to an entity that will use the information for immigration enforcement. There are obvious exceptions for court orders and data subject to disclosure under public records law. So in line with our Oregon laws already. Again, this is effective on passage, so I'm sure our county council is already making sure that those data contracts include that provision. And then finally, your board in past sessions, so not in 2025, but previously had worked on the universal representation, providing support for that program. So Senate Bill 5204 provides $8 million in general fund for universal representation, which is a program by which there are legal supports and lawyers made available or paid for through that fund in their immigration process. So those 5.6 will go to that fund. 2.4 is provided to the Oregon State Bar for immigration legal services directly, and an additional $2 million in general fund to the Department of Human Services for refugee assistance. I will happily write notes if you need further answers and get them to you in the future, but those were the big ticket items that have a direct impact either to previous work or the work of the county currently.
The question I would have is, for ourselves and county staff, is where do we direct people should they ask about how to take advantage of these funds?
I will work with the comms team to make sure that those links are available to all of us.
Thank you for jumping in there, Ms. Doyle. So Ms. Doyle will work with our comms team. We do have a standing immigration refugee services page that we direct community to other sources so that we're not responsible for keeping up to date information. So we'll make sure this information is included there.
Thank you.
I heard about the Protect Your Door Act. You know, you've got a lot of media coverage on that.
I will turn it over to
Thanks, Aaron. So, excuse me. Another another priority that was taken up by the legislature this session was really reforming public meeting law, closing a couple of sort of problematic loopholes, and resolving an attempt to resolve a very long-standing issue with public meeting law in Oregon related to serial meetings. I guess I'll just start with that one. That's the last one on this list here, HB 4177. There's been a lot of confusion in the past about what constitutes a serial meeting violation. Of course, you all know that being you know you can sort of trigger public meeting violations by having conversations that with a majority of your colleagues on this board, right? But serial meetings are sort of when information is passed from one person to the next, right? And that can create quorum violations as well when there's essentially discussions happening like that, right? And so this bill provides a little bit more clarification on, specifically what sorts of things can and cannot be discussed. Sort of some exceptions, when you're just sharing information that you got from a constituent, for example, or talking with a reporter who's talking to your colleagues, right? So things like that, right? And so that bill, I think, will be beneficial to the county. The other two are also good for local governments as well. HB 4159 adds a local government representative to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. Previously, there was no local government representation. HB 4161, that closes what folks were calling I think we were calling it the hot dog rule, right? Which was where folks were governing bodies weren't able to purchase food and beverages for members of those bodies. If you're having a long meeting, sometimes that can be really helpful, especially when you're considering, community appointed groups and that sort of thing. So this closes that loophole. We can now, provide modest food and beverage.
The context for that was not that it was illegal to do that. It was that there was no law that said that, but the Ethics Commission concluded.
Right.
The Ethics Commission,
violation, right?
The Ethics Commission determined that the purchase of food or beverage for public officials, i.e., staff or any
Committee, volunteer
committee, was a violation of the office of economic gain from a public office. So it's a very complicated thing. The county leadership had already resolved that internally to Washington County by making it clear it is part of the compensation package and part of incidentals for purposes of volunteers. But this makes clear that OJIC took it a step beyond what the legislature intended.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
That's the proper way to say that out.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that, Aaron.
This is common, I might say.
Yeah.
Some of their interpretation.
Right. Yes, that's right.
Pablo, was there a bill that passed that had to do, I don't remember the number of it, but something about if a bunch of electeds attend a training or conference, they're considered as a public meeting?
I'm not specifically sure about what that's referencing, but
We'll look into it
Okay,
and
yeah.
get back to you and provide clear answer.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And second to last slide, board. So now we turn to the policy bill connected to the $25 million investment for affordable housing preservation. The bill 4036 creates the Housing Opportunity, Longevity, and Durability, or HOLD fund, which is a dedicated funding source to preserve affordable housing. As this board knows, with Wood Spring Apartments, having resources available at the right time is crucial to preserving affordability. And so this bill creates a more proactive framework to do just that, to be prepared for those types of interventions when needed, backed by that initial investment of $25 million. It's also worth highlighting this is the first time that the state is applying the Article 11 Q bonds to affordable housing preservation. So while we would have loved another zero following that 25, it definitely provides a framework for us to return and request more funding. Thank you.
And to prompt you, Carly, that is for the remainder of this biennium, right?
Yes. Thank you.
So 25 million for the. So, with that, we'll turn to our policy question. If there's further information that you would like from your GR team to bring back in written form, happy to take those questions now. I'll turn it back to you.
I have a hard time at the end of a session and with report outs like this, really understanding which bills take effect when. And I know it's a really complicated formula, right? Because the governor has so long to veto a bill or to just not sign it and then it becomes effective. So what I'm going to be curious about is which of those bills become effective after this calendar year, and making sure that the next board knows what has changed as part of their onboarding in order to support your efforts and agenda for the upcoming long session. So really, from my standpoint, I don't need to have a grasp on that until September. So I realize it's just not something you're able to do right now, right? So that's what I want to reinforce. This is really great information for me today. But I know I'm going to start wondering in about that September timeframe.
That's fair. There are essentially three dates by which a law becomes effective. One is on passage, which is as of the governor's signature or decision not to sign and allow enough time for the veto to lapse. The second is 91 days from the sine die of session, which I forgot to do the calendar counting, which is always a fun project for me. So we'll figure that out. And then the third date is upon January 1st of the next calendar year. That's your standard date. So everything that passed, thank you, Carly, doing math. The 91st day is June 5th of this year. So we will make sure that our departments, our county council, and administrative offices all understand what changes and when. But we will be mindful of that for the future board conversations around the 2027 legislative agenda, which will start in February of 2027. So we'll have some time.
As a former mayor of Tigard, I am very appreciative of the continued reference to the Wood Spring Apartments, and that I guess by being a little loud and obnoxious as mayor, I helped create a monster that is a good monster, but it's the reference that keeps giving. So I'm glad to hear that's still referenced. I'm sure at some point we'll have other projects that we need to figure out, and maybe it'll get a new name.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. The curse and the blessing of being the first.
Yes.
Anyone else? No?
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the effort during session. I know it was pretty wild and fast paced, even for short session standards, right?
Yes, and we will come back with all of the answers to your questions in Friday's memo or as quickly as you possibly can. And soccer might be sick and I can't do him forever. Thank you for your time today.
What do the legislatures do between now and February?
Most of them are going on a information silence because it is the campaign season. So there's a requirement that they go dormant until after the finalization of the elections as far as using their elected information to go out. They will be campaigning because it is a year for the entire House and a portion of the Senate, and then they will start creating their legislative agendas and start feeding those in. When we come back to your board next, we didn't do a next steps because I didn't have the time to, or we did not have the time to figure out when we had the time to come back for the 2027 process, but we will have those dates. They haven't published that calendar yet. So they're thinking about their futures and future legislative concepts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So board, you have a decision to make. Would you like to take a 15-minute break now, or would you like to move forward with board leadership communication and formal agenda item discussion, then take a break before we go to exec session?
I would like at least 10 minutes of a break.
Want full 15?
Either way.
Okay. So we'll take a 15-minute break and reconvene at 2:35.
Welcome back, Commissioners. Over to you, Chair Harrington.
Great, thank you. We're now back from break, and so we'll continue on with agenda item 3, board and leadership communication and formal agenda item discussion. Would the board like to start with the formal agenda item discussion? Great. So we have 2 business meetings tonight. We first have the Clean Water Services business meeting starting at 5:30 with 4 items on the consent agenda, then the converse of what we had last week with the IGA between Washington County and the Urban Road Maintenance District. Then we have the Board of County Commissioners business meeting with 20 items on the consent agenda. Boards and commissions, 1 item, 2 proclamations, 2 public hearings, and then 2 action items. Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
I would just like to point out to fellow commissioners that consent item on the Board of Commissioners for Washington County schedule is to approve the temporary closure of approximately 70 days for Kaiser Road. And I'm just elevating this because of the discussion that we had around River Road. I want to draw your attention to the description in that's attached here. I think that they've done a good job of working with school districts and with others. So I'm not inclined to pull it off the consent agenda, but I just wanted to highlight that I have, as well as sounds like others have looked at this, and I'm comfortable with the approach that's being made.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else with regard to tonight's agenda that we need to talk about?
I would just ask that on the rule of law, we try to work out whatever we're going to work out during time this afternoon, right?
Right now.
I'd like to work the issues there and then move forward in the business meeting. Hopefully, my request to not rehash everything. If there's been a couple times where I feel like that's been not very effective, and so I just, that's my ask. I know not everybody may agree, but
Well, I've got 2 of you who do.
I would agree.
And Commissioner Willie, so why don't we start there? So we have the original, well, I call it the original, but it's the resolution and order from our, I believe, February 17th and the 24th. Then we have 2 different versions via Commissioner Fye. So the first one with 3 amendments, and then another one with a suggestion. So how would you like to proceed with discussing those?
Maybe we start with the suggestion one, Chair.
Feel free. They're not mine, so I'm.
yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Where there may be some consensus.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we can start there. Obviously, I sent out 2. I would like the board to consider at least one of the one that has the 3, but we can start there and then go to the one that has the 3 amendments. So. And Commissioner Willie, per your request, it's highlighted so that you know the one that County Council suggestion versus the other one, the difference.
And I'll just, to start the conversation, I will say that I can support the county council's revised version that is in the draft of the one concept. The other 2, I don't think they, well, for one, they're not written in the draft separately, and I don't think county council recommended that they be included if it is. I'm not really supportive of that content, given our conversations, and you'd agreed to take number 3 and put it into the our legislative advocacy process, and I would still stick with that. And I think you were amenable to that. So just to start the conversation, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so the first one, I think there's consensus. I don't think we need to rehash that one. The one,
I'm confused
wait,
about what the
yes.
first one
Yeah,
is.
me too.
So I believe if I can use reflective listening here,
Okay.
Commissioner Snyder, your comments go towards the county council suggestion that reads, it appearing to the board that the board as the executive body of Washington County, has a responsibility to model adherence to the Constitution of the United States and state of Oregon to ensure the county's practice adhere to and to, in appropriate circumstances, use its institutional voice to oppose unconstitutional actions that affect county residents.
Correct.
So that's the one that you say you support in content.
That's correct.
I don't. And in appropriate circumstances. So who's going to determine an appropriate circumstance?
Our board.
I don't think we need it. So I'm a no.
I'm a yes. And if it got to you to yes, we could say in appropriate circumstances as determined by the board, it will use its institutional voice. If that changed your position, I'm just offering that as
I just don't know what it. So we use our institutional voice to oppose unconstitutional actions that affect the county resident.
Yeah, the point it's conveying is that we're not going to just sit and observe and not like speak up and out when we see things that are very obvious violations. And we all, I think it's maybe a good clarification that the board is who makes that decision. I think it's implied with what's written there now, but maybe that's a
I would feel more comfortable if that were included.
county council, can you weigh in, please?
I mean, I have no opinion one way or the other, but we can absolutely make that change if that's all.
You think it would help clarify? Without that language, what does it mean? Does it mean someone else could define it?
It's not how I read it, but I wrote it, so that may be part of the issue.
You may be slightly biased.
So are we talking about where it says inappropriate circumstances, it reading instead in board identified or board supported appropriate circumstances?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's a similar thing.
Just to identify that it is the board that determines the circumstances.
So
Council.
In board supported appropriate circumstances. I just want to make sure that's the language.
I'm fine with that language.
Okay.
Commissioner,
you have let me pause here if you don't mind me slowing it down a little. Is there a version that you might be I'm trying to make sure I'm not asking you a judgment call question, but clearer language.
Yeah, I think inappropriate circumstances as determined by the board is probably very clear.
As determined by the board.
Yeah.
Oh, I just heard Commissioner Willie say he liked that.
I like that verbiage. I didn't say I was going to say.
I'm trying to get you to a yes.
You're close. That's warm.
So I assume Commissioner Fye, you're comfortable.
I'm
Okay.
amenable.
So Commissioner Willie, I joined you when we talked about this previously in not being comfortable with this. And I will say, I continue to be uncomfortable about it now that we see the circumstances of the president choosing to take action, which now seems to have us in this very confused set of words and national attention. We now seem to have a USA created war. with Iran. And so that situation then brings back up the Israel-Gaza, now Israel-Lebanon issue. And I have communicated previously being quite concerned about the amount of time and board capacity that we have to take on issues that take us away from the main county business. So that's why I remained supportive of the first proposal that we had for the rule of law, because it was doing a good job of focusing us on our work as a county government in serving the constituents. As worded, I think this suggested addition, improved here in the meeting, will put the board remaining as it is between now and the end of the year and into future years in a continuous cycle of having to decide about using the work group capacity. So that is my concern. It sounds like there are 3 of you who are comfortable moving forward with this, and that is your choice.
I think it's more important to me that it be approved by all of our board together to make as powerful of a statement as we can. So I would give serious consideration as to whether we would want to pass something 5-0 without the addition versus 3-2 with the addition. I think that's a weaker position. I also think the chair brings up a good point about sort of foreign policy, which I think is definitely mostly outside the county's portfolio and position area. And so, you know, if we were going to keep that language in, we might even want to clarify that it's related to domestic affairs or something like that.
I would be far more comfortable about that because I can't recall the timing, but I think it was before you started your term here. Multnomah County weighed in on the Israel-Gaza situation, and outside forces had a big influence on the political future of the congressional race. And so that's why I think.
I mean, that's not to say that I think the current military activity is justified, makes sense, et cetera. But when I think about our role in the county, and frankly, my level of expertise in sort of international politics and what's even legal and not legal, and the Constitution related to foreign war, like that's just not, I don't think that's our core competency. It's not our expertise. And so I think that, you know, if we wanted, would that change your support, Chair, if that
Yes.
was clarified to domestic affairs?
I'm just not sure where to include that, so I would need your help.
Looking at the same thing.
Maybe the county council has a recommendation.
So looking at the last line of the proposed Second Amendment, use its institutional voice to oppose unconstitutional actions inside the United States that affect county residents.
Okay. I like that. You don't like it?
Inside the United States. Anytime we are going to use our institutional voice to oppose unconstitutional actions when it has not been defined if it's unconstitutional or not, no matter what it is inside the United States or inside our world. Okay, if we want to narrow that down to good old Washington County, okay, fine. But then I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with the original version. And I don't see anything wrong in the original version. I like it. It's specific, but not this specific. And I think the authors of this did a good job of that. And I don't see any reason at all to change anything of the original version.
I think it's important to have 5 yes votes. So if that's your sort of final position, I think we should all give that serious consideration.
Could I ask, am I interrupting you? If I could, I appreciate your refocusing me back to oppose unconstitutional actions, because I think one of the things I expressed on the February 24th, when we reviewed all of the three amendments, is I was uncomfortable about us determining constitutionality, and which is what the board would be in the position to do.
Well, literally every executive order that has been issued has been challenged as to the constitutionality of it.
Well, there's challenged and then there's determined.
That's exactly right. And so we're going to wait for that before we make this.
So I just wanted to report back as to the effect of that.
Could I make, I'd
Yes,
like
please.
to make another point here, and that is that if lines number 8 to 10, and I'm looking at the second version, I think you're looking at the first version, but we're reading the same verbiage here.
Okay.
If we stopped right at the purpose here was to demonstrate that we're modeling the behavior of adherence to the Constitution of the United States and our local Constitution in Oregon. What if we just stopped at that point and said, we didn't go on to say to ensure county practices, that we just stopped at the beginning of the third line, appearing to the board that the board, as the executive body of Washington County, has responsibility to model adherence to the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon, period. The rest of it is a little editorial in nature.
Oh, I see what you're suggesting. Yeah. Yep.
And if we would be up to interpretation what modeling that behavior would look like, but nonetheless, it would be in the resolution and order that it was our responsibility to model that behavior.
I could be on board with that.
Jerry?
Jerry's not going to support it.
Well, but well, maybe he will.
Yeah,
I agree.
Stop right here. Yeah, this was.
Yep. That's the suggestion.
That was I'm looking toward bringing us to the middle here without throwing it all, the amendment out
Okay,
completely.
I could probably live with that, but I don't understand why we would add that when, if you read the rest of the document, it says basically that.
We're already doing that.
Yeah.
The reason we would do it was offered up as an amendment by a fellow commissioner. That's why.
Yeah, but the power in that, I think, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Fye, and I want to hear her feedback on this, but I think the primary purpose of that was to talk about the using our institutional voice part, which we're talking about cutting.
And I am just saying, the question was why add it?
Yeah.
And I'm saying because out of respect for a fellow commissioner, trying to find the middle here.
Thank you, Commissioner Trace. I appreciate that. I feel like would it be helpful, because I think the way I interpret this rule of law and the recommendation from the community, how it started, it's really to stand for the Constitution, to stand up for the Constitution. So beyond symbolic, I feel like, Commissioner Willie, I don't see what your objectives is other than, like, the idea is, I really think Commissioner Snyder articulated correctly around using this voice to sort of say we are going to be standing up. I do get the concern about the, getting involved in foreign affairs. I thought that was very good point to point it out, and I think it's good to have the domestic part sort of focus it in on like what is our role. We're elected to serve county residents. So for me, it's about like how do we signal to the community that we will do whatever in our power to make sure that we're upholding the Constitution. So I think the voice of this institution standing up and say what's wrong, like those are what gives power to this statement here. And you know, I think like it's hard. And so I would like you all to consider, I don't know, Jerry, how do we have until 6:30, we can continue to talk about
No,
this.
no,
Till
we
5:30.
we have
Till
a
5:30.
time certain executive session at 3:45.
Yeah, so we have until 3:45. I stand corrected.
And I do have some board information to impart. So we don't have.
Yeah, we will.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah,
I
but
don't like being the opposition, but I'm going to be the opposition. Okay.
You're not the only one.
I refer
I
to
think
you.
the three of us should pass it. It's fine. I think it's okay.
No, I
There's
think
three that support.
Jason's got a point, you know.
I don't
You know.
support the original one.
Okay. So just let me read this to you. When you want us to use our voice.
Yes.
I'm going to start on line 20
Are you
on the front page.
which copy are you on? Are you with the three
This is the original.
He's on.
I'm hoping we all
he's
have
the
the
one that-
original.
No, that's
It's the same as what's in the packet, starting on
Except the red.
page 388 minus the red.
Yeah, ignore the red.
Go ahead.
How about I read it?
Yes, please.
This is the original. It appearing to the board that each member of the board has sworn a solemn oath to support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and the laws thereof, the Charter and the laws of Washington County, and the policies of Washington County. Pretty doggone inclusive, I'd say. We are supportive of the Constitution and everything therein. It appearing to the board that the board adopted resolution and order on July 22nd, 2025, titled "The Matter of Adopting a Resolution on Access and Opportunity," and appearing to the board that the RNO holds at its core a commitment to the constitutions of the United States and Oregon, along with longstanding federal and state laws protecting individual rights to fair and equal treatment. Is that not pretty clear what we are committing to and swearing to when we're sworn into office? I don't see any.
Yeah, I would
additions that
agree with that. That does not include the parts about using institutional voice, but I think you indicated that you're not comfortable with that. So that's the part that in my mind, that's a part that gets added if we add this concept, or that's the purpose of adding it.
But nothing in this current, minus the amendments, keeps at any time the board determining by a majority that it wants to use voice.
That's true too.
So to say that it does would be factually incorrect.
Yeah.
So
Board can do that at any time, whether it's written in here or not.
So to join you, I think I have on multiple occasions expressed my concern with the amendment, even the amendment that we've reworked.
What I'm also gathering here is that we're at a place where we're not going to have a 5-0 vote, so I'll just drop that from the consideration. At least that's my reading of the votes here.
Where are we?
So we are back to the version discussing, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, discussing the three different amendments that we have in today's packet with rule of law with all three amendments. So if you go to page 48 of 59 from our business packet, at least for this one. It appearing to the board that the board, it's the one we just talked about, the original amendment 2. So we know we don't have agreement on that. And then there's amendment number 1. It appearing to the board that the immigrant community ... and observing federal immigration officers denying immigrants their Fourth Amendment rights through unauthorized searches and seizures. And then Amendment 3 adds a resolved in order that the Washington County Board of Commissioners declares its support for S 3470, the Accountability for Federal Law Enforcement Act. As we discussed on the 24th, we usually consider federal legislations through our normal government relations work and letters of support versus in resolutions and orders. So Commissioner 5, these are your amendments.
Okay.
So you'll need to move it forward.
Thank you. So that second amendment, which is the one that starts line 16, appearing to the board that the immigrant community in Washington County has observed federal immigration officers, the one that just Chair Harrington read off. What I would like to give support on this one. What can I address to get to yes? And in terms of Commissioner Willie, what you said, what's missing, this is completely something that's missing from the.
So I'll start. I go back to, I didn't mean to cut you off though.
Oh, no.
Okay. So as I said on February 24th, I think this does have the improvement of immigrant community making the observations. That's a large statement, but it is community members deciding on the denying of the Fourth Amendment rights and community members deciding on unauthorized searches and seizures and denying the First Amendment. So that's, it's an unusual policy statement that we would be including a statement of, for lack of a better term, potentially third-hand, not legally qualified judgment. While I do support everyone's lived experience, and they're saying that in their opinion, or in opinion, expertise, experience, they feel they've experienced these things. I'm concerned about a legal judgment. And I'm also influenced by the federally convened meeting I attended this morning, which I'll speak to later.
I don't, I said quite a bit the last time we discussed this on why I didn't support the other two, and I don't necessarily need to rehash and restate all of that, but my concerns remain the same.
So you are not in support
of the other two?
No, of this one that she just read about the immigrant community.
Correct. And I really went,
each remain concerned.
yeah, I went through in a lot of detail about how that's a lot of in the last discussion, it's a lot of sort of judgment calls, decisions that would end up being made by a court. The use of, I think, words that aren't even, like it says, I think I clarified too, it says unauthorized searches. I don't think that's what's actually in the Fourth Amendment. I think it's unreasonable searches. So there's just a whole bunch of issues with that I just, to me, are just way beyond what I want to put in a resolution in order, trying to speak to what we're trying to speak to here.
I agree with what both of you have said, and I will go back to my other statement that I would like to see this resolution and order be about, again, the Constitution and how that moves forward through time. And so that was the other piece that I mentioned previously. So I'm just reiterating that. But I would not be in support of this.
I mean, the board, just on the face of it, like the board itself, like that's this body of 5 people, right? I don't know of a situation where this body has gone out and observed that what's being described there as an action. Like that's just not, we haven't even seen one altogether to even make that statement. Like
collective statement.
Yeah. It's just, for one, I think we'd be on pretty iffy ground to make the conclusion anyway, based on just observing a situation. But
well,
even so, we've not all observed a situation.
But the other, aside from when you're reducing it down to the facts of whether or not that have happened, and I appreciate that. I also think that the essence of what we're trying to get at here is around the support of the Constitution, and that is the most important piece to me. I believe that these circumstantial situations may present themselves, and we lean back on this RNO to address those circumstances.
Yeah, agree with that.
But this one isn't saying we observed, it's saying that the community, the immigrant community, and I think we've had a presentations, not a presentation, but public testimonies where people showed up in a critical number telling us this is happening. This is a way to recognize.
I want to make it clear that I'm not denying that.
But that's all it's saying. And if we get rid of it and don't include whatever gets passed, then we are denying it. And we are denying recognition of the community, where this whole thing came to us because the community members, this group that submitted this proposal, rule of law, support the rule of law, that group came and recommended that the immigrant community is under attack. Here's what's happening in the streets of Washington County. The rule of law isn't being followed. Please protect the community and institute these rule of law. What got in front of the board distilled and really got rid of a lot of crucial information. And what I'm trying to do as a one board member who self-identifies with that community, who's been attacked, who's had parents that died, is to say, let's recognize the immigrant community. Where do we mention that community in this rule of law? Where do we say that we're going to stand up for this community and protect them? I don't see myself. How can you pass something it's embarrassing to pass something like this. You either go back to the original recommendation the community recommended and say, we'll pass that. But if you want to pass this one that has both two commissioners, one commissioner and chair put in a lot of effort and the staff, then you have to go back to the original. Why did we start this? This came about because certain community are targeted, no matter the Constitution isn't being followed. People are being dragged in the streets. Many of us are carrying our passports. How many times do you need to hear that? So I think you can't go around the immigrant community. Those cannot be words that you're scared to see. And this isn't, I've talked to I don't see the legal ramifications of saying, hey, you said this in an RNO, this is symbolic. I don't think anybody is going to turn into this an ordinance that says we're going to institute these rules for ICE to follow, for the federal government to follow. So what we're trying to do with this RNO is to signal to the community that we are against what's happening in the streets of Washington County. And I don't see, so I don't know how we word this, but we cannot be afraid to infuse the immigrant community into this RNO. This can't be how many of you leave this board. We have to figure out, we have to go back to the basics. The basics of this rule of law idea was one community group is being attacked. So how do we protect that? It says a lot of good words here, but we're still afraid to distill that and say, we're going to hone it down to the community that are impacted, Jerry. How do we do that?
Okay, my opposition to what you're saying is that why didn't we do this in 2020 when the African American community was being attacked? Why didn't we do this before when I'm sure other other individuals were being discriminated against? We are very, very narrowly focused against the immigrant community. And I certainly agree that at this point in time, it's the immigrant community that's being attacked. But 5 years from now, it'll be something else. 5 years ago,
of course,
it was something else. So why would we put something like this in here when we're basically saying already that we are going to defend these things and we don't need to be specific to the communities that you're referring to?
But this came about because of that. And I will tell you, 2020, with all due respect, as much as I disagree with our current federal administration, there wasn't a mandate that says go round up all African Americans.
Shoot them
So there wasn't any mandates. Right now, what we have is an executive order that says immigrants, deportation, ICE, you have unlimited, so that's what the.
So to at least part of what I heard you say, right? I heard you say a lot, and I tried to write down what I thought I heard you say. But towards one of your questions about our needing to signal that we're against what is happening, I believe that lines 12 through 15 do achieve that. It appearing to the board that the board has observed the growing power of the executive branch of the federal government and frequent recent actions by the executive branch that appear inconsistent with the ideas of separation of powers, federalism, and the rule of law. And this,
hence why I put my amendment right
finish,
after it.
If I could finish, please. This resolution and order is our instilling what we as a county board for a county government define as the rule of law as well. So that we're being very clear. So I believe that statement about the actions that we're seeing are in fact inclusive of what you were looking for.
So I'm pretty disappointed about where we've gotten as a board and unwillingness of multiple parties to try to come to some sort of consensus. And the whole purpose in this, I think, or one of the key tenets is to be consistent and all be supportive of what we're trying to say. I've revised my thought again, and I do not think that it should be voted on where it's getting less than 5 votes. So if we don't have that on some content, then, as much time as I've spent on this, I don't want to see it move forward and get a 4-1 or 3-2 vote. I think that just sends the wrong message. It's confusing. It's unhelpful. And if we're at a point where we just can't move forward, which is what I'm gathering from this in a way that we can all collectively agree, then maybe we just keep the work so we can potentially use it in the future when others, when we can get to 5 votes. But I strongly urge us to not send a divided message on this. So I'd recommend we move on, and maybe someday this can be considered. I don't want to do that, but that's where I think we're at.
Well, it appears that the original version is not going to get your 5-0.
Correct.
And no other.
speaking for you, Nafisa, so if I am wrong, please correct me. But you would not support the original version as it currently stands.
I would recommend the amendment.
Okay, and we're saying no to the amendments from what I hear. At least 5-0, we're not supporting that. So then the only
Are we
option
not
we have-
supporting the one from the county council? I thought that had 3, or you still want 5? Okay, again.
I just, what is the message when we're taking something with this content and voting on it 4-1 or 3-2? Like what? It's just, I think that's absurd. And I understand why we are where we are, but let's just move on with other county work if we can't get to 5-0. So I guess Commissioner Willie's question to you, Commissioner Fye, is if you raise all those during the formal business meeting and none of them get adopted, are you planning to support it or not? No? Okay. Then I think we're done with this conversation.
What did you?
That's my opinion.
Well, I was,
I missed the side conversation.
throw up, well, because Catherine and I were opposed to this initially, but if we would agree to the original one plus the legal where the dot is after Oregon, so it says appearing to the board that the board as executive body of Washington County has a responsibility to model adherence to the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon, period. If we add that sentence in there,
It would need to be semicolon and instead of
Okay.
period, but
okay. Then that's the only modification that I think that I would be agreeable to. Not the second and not the third. And I asked Catherine if she would agree with me on that, and she did. So now we're 4. Would you accept if that's the only revision?
No, because you have the institutional voice is the piece about it.
Let's move on with the county's work. I mean,
we can move on. We can have
we've done a ton of work on this. We've had a ton of discussion.
How would you
We all
include
need to recognize when we're not going to move forward.
How would you include it?
It's implied.
so can I ask county council a procedural question? Given that we have an agenda posted with the original resolution and order, how would we go about tabling it? As I believe that is what Commissioner Snyder is suggesting.
We're not in your business meetings. You can pull it from the agenda here and we can discuss the time to bring it back to your board.
Yeah, that would be when we think we can get to a 5-0 vote on some content.
And I think per the charter, it only takes 2 commissioners to pull, or is that just for the consent agenda?
No, that's for
The whole
Any
agenda.
agenda.
correct. Yep. Mhm.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Jason's proposal.
Okay.
And I want to say thank you to Commissioner Snyder, because I believe that having these types of disagreements in the public is not good for the commission or for getting to a positive outcome. And I do want to say I'm very sorry to our public about this.
Okay, so we have 25 minutes for the remainder board and leadership communication.
May I offer something, Chair?
Yes,
I
sir.
only need about 5 minutes with your board for the executive session and nobody else is coming.
Okay,
If it's helpful, I can start with leadership.
great.
Okay. So I am going to start off with the federal update. There are proposed changes to what's called SAM, which stands for the System for Award Management. Another acronym that we're hearing is sam.gov. And now that I've learned that, I can't unhear sam.gov. At first, and Marnie can attest, I was really confused because I thought it was some website that what I was supposed to be familiar with, but no, now I am. The federal government has proposed new rules affecting the System for Award Management, or SAM. And this is the registration system required for any entity applying for or receiving federal funding. Washington County currently maintains 15 SAM registrations. Under the proposed rules, the county would be required. Go ahead.
So registration for any entity applying for or receiving federal funds. So it's if it could be for an organization receiving federal funds through another agency even. So for example, CDBG funds to a local area government or a service provider, as we have in our contracts.
Right.
So subrecipients, it can also,
That's the phrase.
Yep.
Thank you.
It can also be for other community-based organizations, nonprofits that receive direct federal funding.
Yes.
So I'm going to focus this just on county, but I want to highlight this is impactful for anyone that relies on federal funding. And we have heard from CBOs their concerns. Commissioner?
I think you answered.
Okay. Under the proposed rule, and please interrupt me because I know this is new information and ask questions. Under the proposed rules, the county would be required to attest compliance with several federal executive orders related to diversity, equity, inclusion, immigration, and anti-terrorism. Because Oregon limits support of federal immigration enforcement activities at a local and state level, there is a concern that the county may not be able to make all the required attestations. If that were the case, our eligibility for federal funding could be at risk. At this time, we do not know whether the county and or other governments and organizations would be required to immediately recertify if rules are adopted. So what I mean by that is if the federal government adopts no new rules, we do not know if current agreements would be at risk. Should I pause there?
I'm confused. And I'm confused because I don't know if what you're bringing here is a new set of circumstances.
Yes, it is.
Okay, it's a new set of circumstances. And does this mean that we're going to have to go back and look at what we did with our former RNO that last July?
Not the RNO. This is in essence a new process. I see Alex wanting to jump in.
Please do.
This is proposed rulemaking.
Okay.
It's not a final rule.
Yeah.
It's still in notice and comment through GAO. The notice and comment period ends March 30th.
Okay, let me kind of, okay, that's what I was getting to. So this is our current situation, and now I want to ground us where we are on time. And I want to give huge kudos to Aaron Doyle, Marnie Kyle, and Courtney Van Duke-Dreesen, and William Bass. The board has met William once, our grants coordinator. They have been working extremely closely on this and started preparing a draft comment letter. As Alex said, we are currently in the rulemaking timeline. Comments must be submitted by March 30th. We are at March 17th. So the next step is staff is going to work on that letter. We will be sending that letter to your board, and staff are available for or one-on-ones should you have any concerns or questions, so we can ensure that the county submits a letter by the March 30th deadline. Chair.
County Council, do we have the ability to have an emergency meeting between now and March 30th? Could you look into that too?
Yes.
So, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Well, I just some of what was just described on the face of it seems not legal under federal law. And I guess I want to make sure that that at least part of what we're planning to comment on is on that.
We're not that far into it yet. What I will say is your spidey senses are correct. Much of this may not be legal. And like many actions from this administration, it will likely be widely challenged.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of homework that we have is to go back and figure out what the state's portion of that is going to be.
Okay.
Because we've had other instances where the state has challenged certain federal executive orders. And
I just want to make sure we're commenting on the lack of legality if that's
this is new, so we're not that far.
So, and on that, I want to be very clear about that, though. The state has been, the state can represent the state. So through through how the county proceeds, we have to also be looking at the county's position as an entity, not just looking to the state. So, Chair, since you brought up the question about scheduling an emergency meeting, given the amount of questions that you have, if that's something that your board would like to do, I would suggest that we move forward, and given the potential large scope. I will also note that I am aware that the Oregon Association of Nonprofits, I mean, I have gotten the order of the words correctly. However, they're currently issuing their own comments, and we are going to be collecting that and can share that to your board as well.
So while I don't remember the rolling agenda off of the top of my head, I believe I was, after your trip of the 18th, whatever, I think I was the only member of the board that had indicated I might be away the week of spring break. I do not have any determined dates. This is so important that I will participate in person for any, if we're able to have an emergency meeting, because this is are not being able to qualify for funds based upon these proposed rules would be devastating to what we do as a county government, as well as devastating to at least all those 3,400 people or 1,300, I've forgotten the numbers from last June and July, who receive housing to date. So
I did not put specific vacation in, but if we're doing it in person, I would much prefer if it's a Tuesday, Thursday, next Thursday instead of Tuesday. But.
Well, we could also, I'm just thinking through what parts can be virtual and.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the 26th.
Yes.
So.
If it needed to be next week.
Thank you for contributing that very much. We have
Actually,
more
26 or 27 for me would be options.
Those are fine.
I don't have anything on 27 either, except for a CWS.
I will make
recap.
myself available.
I'm here.
Okay, so as we look to schedule this, I want to be very clear. Your board may have questions that we may not be able to answer. So I just, we will do the best we can, and at least a conversation will help you feel comfortable in submission of comments by the 30th, and there will probably be more unanswered questions that you have.
I'm just, rather than just waiting until we have this meeting on whatever day. Is there something I can be reading in advance, or could you send me a link to something so I can catch up on what it is?
Staff will put something together for your board.
Yeah.
Marnie Kyle is the staff member that's actually taking the lead on this from County Administration Office, and she's been taking the lead on the coordination of federal.
This will be an executive session?
Alex and I will work
for both
with the chair on how to best schedule this after staff convene based on your board's questions and feedback.
Do you have anything else for leadership?
I do. Can I talk about St. Patrick's Day? Let me switch gears a bit. Our team at Bonnie Hayes Animal Shelter adopted out 10 dogs during our Lucky Dog, Lucky You event. St. Patrick's Day themed adoption this past weekend. The event, which took place March 13th and March 14th, was very well received by the community. This is the type of information I don't always share during my leadership update, but just as chair, you lifted up people and making sure housing matters, taking care of our furry friends also matters. The event will be highlighted in the March edition of our Animal Tales newsletter coming out later this week. Continuing on the Ireland theme, I will be leaving on Saturday and returning the following Sunday. I will be traveling to Dublin for ICMA as part of a global exchange. Washington County does not pay for any of the travel, lodging, meals, or costs related to this event. The event is fully paid by ICMA and my personal expenses. During this event, it is a global learning exchange. So in addition to Ireland, there will be other European countries, also representation from Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United States. So I look forward to learning and being in friendship with other peers from across the world, and also conducting an ICMA board meeting during that time. Over the week.
Typically, the dates then for you would be the 21st, which is this Saturday.
This Saturday, and then
the 29th.
So then you're gone during the time that we're going to.
That's why I was going.
Marnie Kyle would be covering for me.
Okay.
She will be serving as acting.
Okay.
And yep, we'll just leave it there. And returning on the 29th.
Reference to the other conference.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And then also just want to make note, there has been a new location determined for the volunteer appreciation event. As your board is aware, we do annually bring volunteers together to celebrate them and their efforts in giving to Washington County. The new location will be at PCC Willow Creek. So just heads up, the change in location does not impact the budget. And once again, it is on Wednesday, April 29th from 5:30 to 7:30.
I have a question. Why did the event move from the Wingspan?
Because of scheduling challenges.
Scheduling challenges and availability of the Wingspan. Okay.
PCC is a considerably smaller venue than what we were using.
We didn't use the whole space.
And the full multi-purpose room is twice the depth of this. So take this and add it up.
I'm familiar with the PCC room. Just might be like, I think will be crowded, and that's what we want. We've always appreciated recognizing our volunteers and having our volunteers show up, and so we like to have a big group there. I just didn't want it to be restricted.
Well, we did fit into the Washington streets.
We did. That was early.
That's right.
That was cozy.
Yes.
The other
This
thing
is between those.
in the past, some of our volunteers have brought their pets. Is that okay at the PCC? Okay, Philip's doing this.
I am so glad Philip's behind me because I was going to say, great question. We will get back to you.
Yeah, because that seems to be a popular piece.
I think they're all service dogs.
Yeah.
That are brought.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Alex, anything from you?
I will donate my time back to your board. Thank you.
So who would like to go first from the?
Last Friday, I had my briefing with Mayor Drake from Durham on the vehicle registration fee work, and also a county briefing on security and the Explore Tualatin Valley discussions that are ongoing. Yesterday, I was at the Washington County Sheriff's Office recognition event and swearing in ceremony. I will just mention, others that were there may mention other things, but I did want to just point out that we had a very significant event that occurred last May, and it involved the recovery from an Amber Alert that we as a county were one of the only counties, I think, that manages that process ourselves. And in this instance, that was significant. And we, the children that had been abducted were recovered pretty rapidly. And the Washington State Trooper from Wenatchee area was actually in attendance and received recognition as part of this. And that was pretty neat to see. Let's see, we were all at the budget committee last night. Earlier today, the chair and I were both at a HUD homelessness forum, and I've got a lot of notes and probably a lot to say about that at some point, but not today. It was really some interesting content and a broad community leader dialogue that I think was very valuable. This Thursday, there's an Explore Tualatin Valley board meeting. I'll be meeting with Majority Leader Bowman for just a normal check-in, since he's also the state rep in my area, not in his role as majority leader. And then the WA policy conference, I plan to attend that. I don't know if anyone else is going. On Friday, we'll be doing a debrief on the CWS general manager recruitment process, I think, so far. And then the Public Safety Coordinating Council has a meeting Friday afternoon with a tour for the whole group of the New Family Peace Center to follow the meeting. So that is what's going on. I am planning a pretty low-key week next week and kind of acting as a staycation, but I will make myself available. Hopefully, just I ask not on Tuesday of next week or Monday. That's all I got.
Yep. We're on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can go next. Yesterday, I attended the WCCC meeting yesterday, and one of the topic on the agenda was the transportation development tax expenditure. This was a request from City of Sherwood for projects on Arrow Street, sorry, I don't know why I said row. Arrow Street, Oregon Street, and the Sunset Boulevard and Timber Lanes intersection. And this was a request for 6.63 million that will come to our board. The WCCC approved that. And then it was our annual meeting, so we had a bit of a 101 overview, WCCC 101 overview. This is a tradition that every year there's an in-person meeting, and then we go over the bylaws and just revisit some of the histories of WCCC, how it got started. And it was a really, I always appreciate it because it's a refresher. Stephen Roberts and his team did a great job. And then we had a really robust presentation from Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, the STIP. Chris Ford from ODOT came to the meeting and gave an update of the 2027-2030 Statewide Transportation Improvement Program and some of the development that took place, and really honed in on the gains for Washington County and for Washington County residents. And then obviously we had a legislative session recap, a smaller presentation because it was Carly and the city of Hillsborough, different cities that presented what are their gains and losses were from this short legislative session. But Carly came and really did a great job of sort of doing an overview of what's key specific to WCCC, and it was a good conversation. And then this week we have JPAC, and I want to just review with you some of the items that are on the agenda. But I don't see any action items, but we're going to have the MTIP public review, draft summary and public hearing on that one. And then we're going to get are you ready for this? Drum roll, the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program update. That project is still going on. No bridge yet, though. That's a joke. But we're going to get an update tomorrow and really look forward to what solutions are being suggested and see how close we are. And then drum roll again, we're going to get a state legislative session recap one more time this week and sort of just talk about the sort of bit of a regional recap and wins and losses from the short session. And then the big thing that's happening at the JPAC this week is 2028 Regional Transportation Plan, Work Plan Scoping Kickoff. So, RTP is starting their kickoff. So this is something that happens every 5 years. So we're here and get to contribute. So I'll bring my learnings, and if there's some detours that are going to happen from what's been in the past or what's moving forward now. So I'll keep you posted on that. And in terms of something else that I wanted to highlight with my 1 minute here is that I went to there were other board members here too, and hopefully can give some take on. I attended the Casa Amparo. Amparo. My spelling is off today. And this is a $2 million Washington County invested to Central Cultural to upgrade a hotel that turned into a housing. I really appreciated seeing how dignified everyone is housing people and getting people off the streets into housing. It was a really good, fascinating to see of all the improvements that they made and how they're continuing to improve. So $2 million from Washington County, well spent, is what I have to say. And Chair Harrington, you did a great job of your remarks in that. And, everybody was great. I donate my 12 seconds back.
Hey, last week I spent 2 days along with Commissioner Snyder and the Clean Water Services team on the interviewing the semifinalists for the GM position, and it went very smoothly, very well. I was pleased with that. During the middle of that time, I left and went out. I didn't miss anything, but I went to the Washington County Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Committee to talk about the vehicle registration fee. And that conversation, Commissioner Snyder joined online. I thought it went very well. It was very smooth. And
Agreed.
The questions were good questions, but I think we're all learning how to anticipate those questions and start with some information that helps people understand. After our Thursday roundtable, I went over to Forest Grove to Mayor Wenzel's State of the City address, and that was well done. It was in the theater in the Grove, and it was there that I learned about the fact that David Marzilli is going to be moving into the Chief of Police role at Forest Grove. So very, very proud of him. He's a great guy. It was one of the first that I met when I first came here. He was in charge of the Bethany station. So I got to know him in District 2 and really think a lot of him. So I did look at Jesse Vanderzan and say, you owe us one. And I made that really clear. I also attended the Centros Casa Amparo open house on Friday, and I reflected on the fact that when I was first commissioner, I was on the Centro Cultural board for several years, and it was during that time that we purchased that location, and it was one of the first locations to be purchased. And I remember having a little anxiety about whether or not this organization could be in this space and do this type of work. And Centro has done an outstanding job.
in leveraging their dollars and moving toward more housing opportunities for people. And it was evidence there as well. Yesterday was our budget committee update meeting. I thought that went very well. I was pleased there. I was a little worried about some of the fear that might be instilled in our new budget committee members about the size of our budget book and those types of things. But I think everybody responded well. Tomorrow I have a check-in with the county auditor, and Thursday I'm attending the WA 2026 policy conference as well. There's also an RDPO meeting on Friday, and Friday I have a debrief session along with Commissioner Snyder on the semifinal recruitments. Also, we're still trying to schedule and Friday is the window for doing this, the vehicle registration fee meetings with the Forest Grove mayor and the Gaston mayor. But when those are done, I think we're done. So we've hit all of the targets, and it's.
So I got mine done first.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But Maida's just telling me just by a little.
Only by a little bit.
Yeah, but I think the good news is that it's the conversations have been well received. They're not necessarily always in favor, but the conversations have been good conversations. And now we will move on to where requested going to the city councils as well. That is the end of my report.
Okay. Last week, we had a Cemetery Trail Foundation board meeting, and I think it's important to note that my focus is always on the Washington County side of things, which is about 20 some miles. The first 20 from Banks on out, but we have built officially some trail in Wheeler, little Wheeler on the coast. They have been very supportive of that. Lots and lots of volunteers coming out there. So we have actually trail alongside the Oregon Coast Scenic Railway that ends at Wheeler currently, anyway. And so, yeah, that's been a good thing. We certainly have a number of portions of the trail that are in consideration, but it takes a lot of money, and we're still trying to build our learning model, which is here in Manning or somewhere between Manning and Stewart Park. So depends on how much money we're able to get. On Wednesday, I had lunch with Banks Mayor Marsh Kirk, and got an update again on the roundabout on Highway 6, and certainly the development on both east and west sides of Banks. They're anticipating, they have a population of 1,900 right now, and within, I don't know how many years, 5, 6, 7 years, they're gonna go to 6,000. So they're going to triple, and you have to remember that North Plains had some of the similar growth and continues to have some housing out there. So both of my little small communities in rural Washington County are growing. If you remember, I left early last Thursday to go to the thriving metropolis of Cottage Grove for the Association of Oregon and California Counties quarterly meeting. It's always good there. Their forest is in the Bureau of Land Management, so it's managed by the federal government, which is considerably different than the trust lands, which is where most of our forest is, and we deal with state. But both feds and state timberlands are under stress right now for trying to find out what a reasonable harvest amount would be and how you manage that. In the BLM areas, counties, they have the SHS money, which is the schools money that they get from the feds. Wyden was very supportive of that for all those years, got it reinstated. The messaging that the AOCC is communicating to the feds is that if you would just allow us to harvest a portion more, you could keep your SHS money. And so that's a $30 million option. So they're continuing to communicate that. Yeah, and thanks, Jason, on the update on the sheriff's employee swearing in recognition yesterday. We also, at the end of it, we got to view a video of drone activity, catching a person stealing a bunch of stuff out of Target and running and jumping on a bus and all kinds of stuff. Had we not had the drone, we would have had a much more difficult.
None of that
time.
would have probably played out the way it did, and instead they were apprehended within 10 minutes.
Yeah,
off of a TriMet bus that had left the area.
Wow.
yeah, it was very interesting. And the drone has the ability to lock on the bus, so it'll follow the bus. It also has the ability to lock on the individual. And so drone activity is definitely the new stuff. It's very cool, and I'm very happy that we have invested in that. Not only that, we save lives, I think, by using that new technology. So that's all I got.
Great. I, along with Commissioners Willie and Snyder, attended the Sheriff's Office swearing in and employee recognition ceremony, and I brought the brochure in to share with the two of you who were not able to make it. This morning, along with Commissioner Snyder, I attended a HUD-hosted meeting, a forum that convened key regional stakeholders for a discussion on HUD's evolving strategy to address homelessness. Dr. Robert Marbut, Senior Advisor to HUD Secretary Scott Turner, shared federal priorities, funding strategies, and implementation opportunities, followed by a long, extensive Q&A and discussion. Two of our staff experts, Jess Larson and Katie's, whose last name I always forget, sorry, were also in attendance. And my key takeaways, in no particular order, and by the way, they set this up as a by invitation only, press was excluded in order to ensure we were having a frank conversation. So in no particular order, the key takeaways I took from it. We have to focus on outcomes, not outputs. Stop the lawsuits. They're holding up funding, getting to community.
What lawsuits?
All lawsuits relative to the federal government.
Is this, for example, the lawsuits that our Attorney General is bringing?
Yes. There was a lot of conversation about work being done collaboratively across federal agencies. So it's not just one particular agency.
Okay. Thank you.
Emphasis on the next word, reform away from the housing first strategy. And there was one other policy approach that went by so fast I didn't capture the name right. Fourth takeaway, treatment. I feel very good about the efforts, the investments we've made here in Washington County. I made note of the fact that no sooner did we open them up, that they're already at capacity, when we had hoped in earlier years we might have capacity to contribute bed space, treatment space for example, Clackamas County residents. And lastly, comes in three parts. Continuum of care, or COC reforms. We have to make sure for COC boards and meetings that we're inviting faith-based communities and business as well as law enforcement to be at the table. Having COCs collaborate, right? We have 3 different COCs in our region, or merge, given extra points. Oh, and I forgot to write down another matter. Third, under COC reforms is mayors matter. So you better make sure you've got at least one mayor there.
There was an emphasis on elected officials being involved in these processes.
Really? Yep. And dang it, the other key takeaway that I didn't write here. Oh, yes, that if the COCs don't apply or the counties don't apply, that the federal NOFOs and so forth have always allowed for individual service providers to apply directly, which the number of times that through the 14 questions that were asked, the number of times that that point was made did also impress me, and everyone in the room already knew about the rules that Ms. Angie went over and the comment period, but it makes her summary of the impact of that much more real to me, that we could see a totally different variety of service provider or nonprofit applications for dollars than we have historically seen in our region. So a lot to keep up on. I really appreciated Commissioner Snyder, as well as our staff attending, but particularly Commissioner Snyder, as one reason why I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just the only one invited as elected officials, is because of this scheme continuing.
Did they, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Did they,
Oh, if I could finish, because I didn't, continuing after my term is up is my point, sorry.
did they talk about the rulemaking that's going on right now at HUD for the mixed eligibility status?
Not at all. No. They did make mention of being on board with the federal approach.
There's a huge emphasis on really making sure we recognize that both mental health and substance use disorders are driving, like their data nationwide very clearly indicates that that's driving 75% of houselessness, and that some of the strategies we've implemented, including communities that have gone kind of pushing permanent supportive housing, that's not necessarily been effective in the ways that were expected, and that cities that, in Portland's one of them, cities that have been much more aggressive in the last year or two with sort of offering the tougher either treatment or jail approach to stuff have had a lot of success.
Deflection, is that what you?
I mean, we would call it deflection, but I think they're talking about it much more broadly than just deflection.
I just was.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear, and I want to compliment Metro Councilor Christine Lewis for bringing up a question about homelessness tied to eviction prevention and loss of or economic homelessness, and that is not a key theme.
It's not borne out in the federal data.
Yes,
that's the bottom line. Like they can attribute a high single digit percentage attributed to that. He didn't say the exact number, but less than 10% and more than a couple percent. So,
but it was all about
economic.
Yeah, that's the root cause. And he was really, I mean, the speaker was really pushing on, our goal should be with the 75% lifetime recovery and self-sustaining sort of solutions in the long run. And he was really talking about how we have to have meaningful conversations and act on the reality of a lot of the data. And we haven't always been doing that as a country.
And could I ask just
they really focusing on the outcome of reducing homelessness by mental health and substance use disorder.
Was that accepted well by by the group of Portlanders?
I don't think that was the intent of the forum, rather to emphasize that this is the direction of the agency.
I looked at both the medical director of Central City Concern. There was also a psychiatrist in the room too at the table, and neither one of them pushed back on those.
Really?
In fact, I kind of saw
Some head nodding?
Yeah, I mean, so that was actually interesting to me.
Yeah.
We also got lots of Peter Drucker quotes. So
There you go. But those parties that we went through with the establishment of the SHS program, there's the medical approach, which follows what Commissioner Snyder said, versus the more that community advocacy.
Thank you both for being there. That's really interesting.
it was pretty fascinating.
And I did not give recognition to Christopher Patterson, who is the regional administrator for HUD Region 10, which is Idaho, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington.
So, Jason, you and I are going to tag team this new committee through SHS. It sounds to me like, and from what I understand, is one of the first challenges is key performance indicators. And it sounds to me like there was some of that came out of this.
There was a thread around that. This will inform what my comments might be about those key performance indicators.
Well, and it's the first time, and if I heard you correctly, it's the first time I've actually heard someone pushing back on housing first. Because that, from day one in our SHS money, housing first has been the top priority.
That was definitely being pushed back on from a data support perspective at the federal level. We did not have the benefit of knowing what our professional staff said about the presentation today. So I want to be careful about.
This is hot off the press.
I want to be careful about drawing conclusions about that. We can state what was said, but
But the federal administration wants to move away from housing first strategy.
Well,
that was an example.
They were just acknowledging with data that, and the speaker has worked in this space and in this role since 2005, I think. Like, he served like a bunch of presidential administrations, and so there was just an element of, like, we've seen what happens with over time longitudinally with housing first, and if you're not doing the other things and you're not acknowledging the 75% are not well served by housing first. That was a message I got.
And I'm not sure how many federal administrations he has worked under as opposed to with. He was former pro tem of the city of San Antonio.
Yeah, mayor.
Yes. Pro tem mayor.
Yeah, he's a political appointee. Take it with a grain of salt.
Well, I tell you what, some of the stuff that I heard right here is to me spot on, because we're 4 years into this, and we've seen successes in Washington County, but obviously
housing.
Multnomah County and Portland have not. They've gone exactly the opposite direction, and so that's going to be part of the challenge.
They've got some newer traction happening though, and that's also.
I think the Portland Metro Chamber has been questioning housing first for a number of years. Not all, right? I mean, they were on board with the SHS program in the development and the early years, but as the challenges continued and the overall crisis of homelessness increased, I believe they were more open to questioning the housing first strategy.
Another key thing we should just probably mention is that the impact on children in this space and what the Department of Education is sort of working on needs to be handled really almost differently than just an isolated adult or two adults. The outcomes and the issues there are way different than just adult.
Just another generation of potential homelessness.
That was,
Yes.
it is a significant risk factor for the future.
You know,
I hope not.
if I could just make a comment here, we have been defunding mental health services since, I've said this before, since the 70s. And for us to expect any other outcome in the behavioral health or in the behavioral arena is crazy.
Yeah, we're just kidding.
Other thing that we have been doing for a very long, we know what's happened with our the presence of drugs in our society. That's escalated. But we also have the economic pressures that we currently feel. So I'm not saying that 75% isn't up. I'm not refuting the data. I'm just saying it's hard to separate all of those things from one another as well.
And his comments about the economic were specific to rent. And I didn't end up getting to make this comment, but I would have pushed back on just overall income inequality and the role that that's playing in all this. I didn't get to say that or get to that point, but
we've got wage gap as well as the other two issues that have been brewing for a very, very long time.
And getting worse.
Based upon some answers after you had to leave, left me with the impression that the way he would have approached your potential question was to say that data tells us that we need to get back to substance use treatment, and mental health.
I have no doubt that would have been his answer.
There has to be an open door to economic health as well then after those treatments. Sorry.
It was not part of the paradigm as he was referring to homelessness. So do we have any other board communication for today? So we will adjourn this work session and reconvene for the Clean Water Services board meeting at 5:30 and the Washington County Board of Commissioners business meeting at 6:30.
We do have a scheduled exec session. And
Oh,
we're going to take about
I'm
5
so sorry. Thank you so much. So that will adjourn our public portion, but first we need to have a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H for the purposes of discussing potential litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please. Thank you. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. So we'll give those not in